I believe that, these large language models are extremely helpful. And to my point earlier, I do think like if it's really good at listening and if it's good at filling out my admin work, why can't it fill out my medic scores? Because that's all I'm going to do is just process the conversation and then take a couple of notes. And it turns out AI is pretty good for that. And if anybody's interested, shoot me an email, Colin at predictablerevenue.com. I'll send you the prompt that I'm using I take my chorus, I fire the transcript in there, I throw this prompt in there, and then I have it do a medic assessment and like score it out for me. Like it's easy enough to do. It takes me a few minutes. It's I do them. I have one for my medic score. I have one for a perfect call framework that we developed alongside of a customer. When I say developed, I mean they had one and I really liked it, and I changed a couple of things based on my personal preferences, and now I call it mine. And so I've got a prompt that I trained on that, so I can, basically when our customers are listening or when we're booking meetings for our customers, then their AEs jump on, I can take that recording and score it and come out with the score on the other side very quickly, very easily. That's one of my favorites that I've done. Like I was working on that last week. I'm actively using this. I'm curious, Jason, to you, talk to me about an AI tool that you're actually using today and getting value from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the ChatGPT, just the basic version on the website. There's a couple things for outbound that I find it to be pretty helpful for. One is if you're reaching out to publicly traded companies and you want to get into a 10K or a quarterly report, I mean, literally the prompt is, I am a rep at XYZ company. My target persona is HR roles. They care about these 3 things, and here's how we help them. Like, make that the prompt each time. Here's a quarterly transcript. Can you help me pick out specific things from this transcript that they're focused on that we might be able to help out with? Like literally like that. And then you copy and paste the transcript in, and it'll do a really good job of picking out specific things. And you can also train it too with, like, I have a customer that primarily works with companies in helping reduce their cost to serve in contact centers. So that's how easy their digital platform is to use and self-serve and find manual answers. And that's also, do we have ways to push customers to answer their own questions through FAQs and chat versus picking up the phone and calling in? Because that's what they don't want people to do, is call into the contact center. And these are large companies like your Nordstroms of the world in retail, and then 10 other industry verticals. Well, if you just tell it to look for, like, tell me about any initiatives Nordstrom has from their recent quarterly report that are digital, cost reduction initiatives, web initiatives, customer experience initiatives, and you had like a list of 10 or 15 things, like it does a really good job of taking something that you could literally spend 20, 30 minutes on and help you find it in about 2 minutes. That's the biggest thing that I have found. For non-publicly traded companies, the other thing that you could do too is if there's any investor relations pages or anything like that on websites, that's pretty money also. And then lastly, in this kind of general type of area, depends on if you have like the Bing, function turned on or not. Like you can get it to, look at news for a company and things like that, and to tell you things that they're working on and, things around expansion and all of the normal types of triggers that you might look for. So I find that to be incredibly helpful.
I love that, because one of my favorite things right now is automating the SDR research. And I know this is kind of a cheat because it's not necessarily the only, AI isn't the only thing that's happening here. I'm also cheating with a tool called Clay that's just like madman spreadsheet with 40 different integrations. But one of the cool things it can do is if you give it a list, like a company's website and their LinkedIn, it can look for news. And it can you can do that for a spreadsheet of 1,000 of them. And so what I'm going to do is steal Jason's idea from earlier about, hey, these are the things that I'm looking for. I can automate a search to find the 10K. I can automate a search to find the investor relations page. And then I'm going to add on and say, okay, these are the things that I'm looking for. Does this post mention any of that? And then what you can do is if you're a named account rep, or if you have a very specific market that you're working with a specific set of accounts, you can build these tools to say, okay, I'm going to scrape and look, every week, I'm going to look for new signals from this set of companies. And then when something pops up that's a high priority trigger, I'm going to use that to prioritize my outreach.
Yep.
And it takes some time to get that set up. But once you do, it's DIY intent, intent that actually works.
Yeah, none of the other garbage intent that tells me that a company's looking for things and there's 1,000 people at that company. Now I got to go figure out who's looking for it. Okay.
Totally agree.
I think that intent can work well for ABM, type of stuff where it's like, hey, they're looking into marketing solutions. Let me just serve some ads up in front of their entire marketing department, like LinkedIn ads and things like that. It could potentially work with that, but I've seen pretty nominal gains, even in the case studies that companies have for this, very nominal gains. But I think, research is a big one. And then the other thing too is, the very first exercise I do with a company when I start working with them is we do a messaging workshop where we create what I call a messaging matrix. And this is, hey, for this persona, what are their top priorities tend to be that we align with? What are their current solutions? How do they get the job done? What are their problems? And then what are their aspirations? Now, if you have call transcripts, case studies, if you're one of those companies that are maybe early stage, you don't have a lot of case studies. You could dig through competitor case studies. One that I really like is G2.com reviews. You can look because you can filter by like the role of the person, the size of the company. It gives you pros and cons. Like there's all kinds of little goodies like this, job descriptions, where you can just start copying and pasting a bunch of this information to ChatGPT, and it'll help you figure out like, what are these people talking about and what do they tend to care about, and help me surface patterns, for that. It's also really good at finding like direct competitors of people. And I think that's a really underrated messaging best practice, is to look at how your competitors, their go-to-market messaging, and using that as a starting point, especially from their case studies. But that's the other big time saver that I've seen. And again, this is relying on good input of data. So if I have some good input of data that I can find, in my experience, it's pretty good at finding the patterns if I tell it what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So, because I love what you're doing with the messaging. I want to, because we do something similar. We have our market fit process where we walk through the kind of 3 hypotheses: your targeting, your targeting, need, and your solution hypotheses. And there's 5 or 6 different categories under each one. Once we have it worked out, and you can, if you look up market fit and predictable revenue, you can see we've got free templates and stuff everywhere. Basically, what we're able to do is input that data, just copy paste it into GPT and say, hey, write an email in these styles for this individual. And then you're already doing all of the work of like giving the AI enough information. It's not writing amazing emails, but what we use it for is to accelerate the amount of time it takes for us to kind of get in the flow of writing a good message. Because going 0 to 1 with a cold email is like, for me, is the hardest part. I sit there with a blank page and I'm like, do I even know how to write a cold email? And I've been doing this for 12 years. I've written so many cold emails. Yeah. Every time I sit there and I'm like, I don't even, what do I even do here? And having this prompt to say, okay, well, it's this individual. These are the 3 hypotheses kind of summarized. Here are the 5 styles that we start with. And I give the GPT like 5 different examples. 3 examples for each of the 5 styles. It's a fairly long prompt. And then say, hey, give me 3 examples of, based on this customer's attributes, give me 3 example emails that you might write in each style. And then from there, I can use that. I copy paste it into a doc and I can start wordsmithing it. And that process takes, now that I have the prompt set up, that process takes 2 minutes of like copy, paste, generate, wait for GPT, throw in a doc. And now I'm editing pretty good messaging. It's not messaging I would ever send in a cold email campaign, but it's an amazing starting point, and it cost me 4 minutes max.
Yeah. It's this whole principle. I think that's really great with sales, is it's easier to edit than to create. So, and that's why with our prospects, we want to be the ones suggesting next steps and ideas and things like that, and allowing them to correct and edit our suggestion versus asking, what's the next step here for you?